Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's panel discussion titled AI, Humans and Robots, or sorry, AI, Robots and Humans, Robots First, a new era of professions. And I believe that the discussion will be really interesting. And we have some wonderful speakers here, and I strongly believe that the best way how to introduce someone is to let them to introduce themselves. So if you can briefly introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Gilles Lassévi. I'm a labor market economist at the OECD. We are based in Paris. In my team, we do research on what skills will be needed in the future, and in particular, how megatrends such as AI, but also aging societies and climate change, so how these megatrends will affect the demand and the supply of skills, and how adult learning systems should be adapted in response.
Next one, please.
Yeah. My name is Offer Breyer. I'm a chief scientist of a company in Toronto that is using AI to transform a speed of transformation in organizations using different technologies.
Josef, take the microphone, please.
Okay. It's my turn now. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Josef Holý. I'm from Prague, and I'm a technologist by nature. In the last several years, focusing on the impacts of digital technologies on our brains, individuals, and whole societies. I'm running a podcast in Czech language, which is called Canaries in the Net, and also have an honor to lead a lecture called Hacking the Mind at the Czech Technical University in Prague.
And Honza?
Hello, my name is Jan Macháček. I'm not a technology guy. I'm chairman of the board of the Institute for Politics and Society, columnist for Lidové noviny, and also an advisor to the president, etc. So I do touch on AI sometimes in my columns.
And my name is Lukáš Benzel. I'm the managing director of the Czech Association of Artificial Intelligence, Česká asociace umělé inteligence, and I will be your host today. So, start easy, okay? Let's take it easy. Start with very simple but personal question. How or do you even use AI in your profession, and how? Over.
I'm using AI, as well as our team, to think. We calculate different aspects of thinking, from critical thinking, which is very essential in this world. We are tracking biases of our own words and thoughts, and we are figuring out whether what we say is correct or not correct. Is it a fact or is it an assumption? I use AI 16 hours a day, different models, different systems. ChatGPT was the first one. What we did, we've enlarged it into the point that it can learn you as a human, understand me as a person, and allow me to think better with my own thoughts.
Julie?
Yes, so I use AI marginally, I would say. Mostly, so my job entails writing a lot of reports. So I use mainly ChatGPT to help me in some language tasks. So for a very specific language task, ChatGPT does not replace me in writing the report, but rather it helps me finding synonyms, for instance. So this is the main use that I do, I would say, consciously. But I think we also all use AI in an unconscious way. So for instance, most of us all have some automatic classification systems of our emails into spam and non-spam, for instance, and this uses some sort of AI or machine learning technology. And I think it's important that we are all becoming aware that AI use is not only always conscious and decided by the individual, but sometimes it is imposed on us by the software that we use.
Okay, my turn now. So, of course, I do use AI on a daily basis. We all do in our daily lives. We have been using AI as a society for the last 15 years at least in the form of recommendation systems in the online platforms. And we have seen proliferation of the technology across industries in different domains. Most recently, of course, we are talking about generative AI, so that's what I've been using more and more as well, especially for analysis and for doing my own research, for my own work, let it be for the university or for the podcast, and also building some solutions which can help people in daily life. So for sure, and I recommend everyone to try it, definitely.
Jan?
Okay, as my predecessor said, we all are using some simple form of AI in all these digital platforms, and social networks are somehow also already manipulated by algorithms. But if my main profession is still to work in the media, to write articles, and especially analysis and opinionated opinions, so in this space we are fortunately, and in this I'm skeptic, still not use AI, definitely not for writing, but I can imagine that at some point, if there is some very boring but somehow important press conference, it can be absorbed by some kind of artificial intelligence. But the question is, who's going to read such articles? Maybe another artificial intelligence only. I cannot imagine. In this respect, I'm quite skeptical that humans would enjoy reading articles written by artificial intelligence. Maybe I'm mistaken, but there is a lot of space in wider context of our profession, definitely in research, in fact-checking, data mining, and a lot of other things. But I still hope we will not use artificial intelligence for writing opinions.
Thank you very much for your answers. The great point is that we all use AI, even though we don't know that sometimes, but if you use internet or your smartphone, you use AI. And this panel discussion is titled AI, Robots and Humans. And I believe that we can agree that AI is somehow changing how we work or how we will work. And my first, a little bit difficult question is, what skills do you believe will be most critical for individuals, like in the next years or in upcoming decade? What's most important to stay relevant on the job market? Over.
So first of all, critical thinking would be the most important skill, because you don't know how you're being manipulated by the data that you get from AI.
Is it possible to learn critical thinking?
If you start at the age of 3, yes.
Okay.
So, because it must be a natural habit, not a knowledge. However, we solve business problems for companies, very complex problems. Usually those problems are being fixed by 10 people working for 3 months in order to solve. We solve them in 1 hour. We don't use only generative AI, but we use different models, and generative AI was one of them. So let me give you an example. When I go to a bookstore, and I love to read books, I have like 20,000 books, and when I want to read a book, usually you take the cover, you look at the cover, you look at the back, you look a little bit inside. So, oh, that's a nice book. Really? Well, I use another platform when I go to the bookstore. I take a picture of it. I'm asking some platform, to analyze the book inside, because every book is also online. So if I use Perplexity, and I can ask Perplexity, summarize the book for me now, here are some questions I have about the book, from inside the book. When I'm satisfied using my abilities to understand, then I will make decision to buy or not to buy the book, right? Most people will look at the cover. Most people will, maybe I know the writer, maybe I don't. But what's in it? So I can look inside the book in very high speed and analyze it. Then I can take that and create assumptions, whether it's useful for me or not. How do you create assumptions? Well, in generative AI, you can create assumptions by using a model. There's mental models that help you to create assumptions. People can sit in a room and say, oh, I assume that, well, I'm sorry, I have only 50 assumptions written while you are thinking about one. Some people sit in a room and say, you know, I have a question for you. And I say, on my computer, I have already a list of 75 questions related to the subject, and I can choose. So AI can be used on purpose, not just by mistake, in order to accelerate the human brain. And that's what I'm doing in order to become really smart, but I'm learning how to talk to the machine, how to argue with the machine, how to disagree with the machine, how to contradict the messages. I'm not using this as a tool, I'm using it as a brain. That's the difference.
Julie, do you agree that the most important thing to stay relevant in the job market is to learn how to think critical?
Yes, so critical thinking for sure, judgment, some sense of, yes, analysis, fine analysis are critical. But these are not the only skills that will be needed. So at the OECD, when we look at the skills that will be needed for AI, we distinguish between 3 types of jobs. So the first type of job we look at is are jobs in which workers have to develop the AI system. So these are very technical jobs, and these workers need specialized AI skills that are at the intersection between programming, statistics, and database management. But these workers, they also need, what you said, critical thinking, they also need broader skills, cognitive skills, such as problem solving, but also some social skills and transversal skills, such as management or sense of collaboration, to be able to manage AI projects and to work in teams. The second type of jobs we look at are jobs in which workers will have to use AI. So they do not develop the application, but they will have to interact with the AI applications. And for that, they need some digital skills, but actually at a pretty basic level. So they only need to be able to manipulate a smartphone to interact with the AI application, or to manipulate a computer. But these workers also need some elementary knowledge of AI at very basic level to understand the output of the AI application and to critically reflect, as you mentioned, to critically reflect on the output and to understand what action to make. And a third category of workers that I would like to mention here that are often overlooked are managers and business leaders. So in order for them to be able to integrate AI in their company in a trustworthy way, in an ethical way, they also need some elementary knowledge of AI, and this should not be forgotten. They need to know what AI is, what AI can do, what AI cannot do, the benefits of using AI in the company, but also the risks that are associated to AI adoption. To sum up, I think that what is clear is that the change in skills that will be needed is much broader than just very technical skills. And in general, the demand for high-skilled workers will increase. And actually, we already see this happening. If we surveyed firms in 7 countries, sorry, 4,000 firms in 7 countries. And when we ask them how AI adoption has changed their demand for skills, they say that yes, AI adoption has increased the importance of having highly skilled workers.
Thank you very much. Josef, if you can answer, but from the point of view of an IT expert, because we very often read that AI is not a technological challenge, that the technological skills will not be needed, because it's, more about more disciplines, soft skills, and so on. So what's your opinion from the view of an IT expert?
So at first I would like to underline what was said here, definitely. Critical thinking, when you think about it, we are going through a paradigm shift in terms of how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive our work and how the work will be done. It's an information revolution now, it's finally catching up, and now we are running on the exponential, basically, change, right? We've been, for the last 30 years, it looks like we've been waiting for this moment to happen. So anything what is related to our brains processing information for our own good, let it be critical thinking, information literacy, media literacy, and all those skills are definitely necessary. I would like to add to that, to your question. Given the fact that AI is a general purpose technology, that means that it will basically dissolve into different aspects of the society. Look at what Apple has introduced, right? It will become sort of invisible. It will become part of our workflows on our iPhones, on our mobile phone, on our computers, in intranets of companies, etc. So you will be interacting with AI without necessarily it shouting into your face that it's AI, right? So from that point of view, the nature of work will change because we will be more efficient. And definitely this technology-driven change requires us humans to maintain our dignity, our human nature, which will need to be redefined clearly, because we thought that we are the most creative intelligences on planet Earth, but now when you look at ChatGPT, clearly you can get pretty good creative results out of it.
Some people still think that,
I know, but they should learn prompting and try to do some creative stuff there. But so basically, for us to thrive and to get over that paradigm shift, which I spoke about, it's necessary to learn to definitely focus on soft skills like social skills, etc. But when I advise to companies how to go through digital transformation, the key aspect of digital transformation and for working with AI is agility. Agility in a business sense, that you iterate, measure, and all that stuff. That's what we learn through agile frameworks, etc. But also being agile in our own minds, not expecting that we will spend next 20 years in the same job. Most of us probably will not. And to foresee what kind of jobs will emerge is impossible because that's behind the event horizon. So that's why we need to be agile to be able to adapt. So agility and adaptability, change of our thinking, which may be difficult from a certain age, etc., I admit. But these are, I think, the critical skills for the next 5-10 years.
Jan, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I think we can add I agree that it's about critical thinking, but also about creativity. But I have certain doubts about that we all know or can agree about what critical thinking is. It's once again a very fashionable term, and it's similar like with this fashionable fight with disinformation. You often have NGOs full of very young people who are teaching people how to find disinformation, and similarly you have NGOs consisting of very young, inexperienced people teaching critical thinking, and I have certain doubts that they really know what critical thinking is, so we have to be sure that we can and are able to define critical thinking. I think it's very important, like an example that you hold certain opinions and you are always able not only to question other people's opinions critically, but to always to be able to question your own opinions critically and from all possible angles. And to an extent, it's not only a matter of intelligence, it's very often a matter of character, and very few people are talented or born with these genes. It also has to do with the need to be during your life career to withstand the pressure to be a provocateur, to be a rebel, to be an outsider into an extent. And we all know that in the history of technological progress, you have a lot of progress which is being pulled by or promoted by people who often were fired from different corporations, they were often fired from universities, and they were quite rebellious. But from their point of view, it could be also considered that they had problems because they had critical thinking. And similarly, it goes for creativity. Some people believe that artificial intelligence is already creative, that it can hallucinate. We know that it can hallucinate, so it can also be creative. But there is creative and creative. Like it can be something can feel like a very empty kitsch or something like kind of a general
that's right.
creativity without nothing, and then there is a real creativity. Like, but I don't want to be too long. Sorry.
If you try to Google something like AI and impact on job market, you will definitely see some of clickbait headlines that are like, AI will take your job, you will lose your job, there's no need to work in the future. So my next question is, what are some common misconceptions about AI and its impact on jobs that you encounter in your profession or in your work, please?
I don't see how AI can take my job. I do see, and I can prove it on thousands of our users, that it's extending your abilities to do more jobs. Now, the problem is how fast can you learn the new jobs that you're using while using AI? So I don't think, like, let's say a civil servant today can answer, I don't know, to reply to 10 calls per day, 20 calls per day. With some AI manipulation and some skills, I can answer 100 people per day, right? So I can do more. Or I can do one thing at my work, or I can give to the citizens more new services that I can use AI in order to create those new services, because it extends the abilities of humanity. And we do it with like thousands of people every day. You know, we see how people are extending their abilities, and you know what? They work more than before, and they need to understand better how to utilize the brain to be in a multifaceted model. When it says like you have to be capable of in many areas, but because AI can produce 1,000 ideas per minute, how do you make a choice? How do you know what's right and wrong? That's why critical thinking is an essence of it. But what we see, and I'll give you an example, okay? As a VP of sales in one of the largest companies in Canada came to us and said, you know, my people grew their sales by 50% since they've used the AI, because we helped them to adopt AI, right? 50% more. So maybe I'm thinking, he said, I can lay off some people because 100 people can do 150 times 100% of work, and I can lay them off. And the only question I asked for him, why don't you hire 100 more people that can do 150% sales? It will not take jobs. It provides you the abilities as long as you're an adaptive person, as long as you understand how the machine works, how does it think, and how to make the best use of it. You can be 10 times more brilliant and more capable and more productive with AI, which means we can give more to society for the same cost.
Julie?
Yeah, so I completely agree with you, Lucas, that in a public debate, there are fears that AI will lead to a jobless future. Are these fears justified or not? Well, let's look at the data. And when we look at the data, we see that AI hasn't had any significant effect on employment so far. So in a survey that I mentioned previously of these 4,000 employers in 7 different countries, we asked them, what was the impact of AI in your company on the number of jobs? And half of them said it had no effect. And the other half of employers were more or less equally divided between those saying it has increased employment or it has decreased employment. So all in all, on aggregate, it is not clear that AI will lead to job destruction. At least this is not what the data say to date. Now, why is it the case? Why these fears are not justified? Well, there could be 2 complementary explanations. And 2 explanations that would make us say that the impact of employment might be larger in the future. The first reason is that in general, employers prefer to let staff go through voluntary quits or retirements. They are a bit reluctant to fire people in mass. They rather rely on natural attrition of the company. So this means any employment effect through this channel might take a while to materialize. Another reason is that at the time of the study, at least, I think in 2021, AI adoption was still pretty low. It was before this like massive adoption of generative AI. But as AI adoption becomes more widespread worldwide, we may see an impact on employment that will be higher. Now, will the effect be positive or negative? Again, this is not clear. As you said, AI and generative AI helps workers being more productive. Does it mean that this impact of productivity will translate into the same number of workers producing more output, or the same number of outputs produced by a lower number of workers? This is, again, not clear.
Josef?
Again, I will underline most of what was said here. I would like to stress out that basically that choice, right, where it gives a huge potential for being more efficient. So the question for business leaders is whether you want to basically generate the same value with less people, or generate more value with the same number of people. And every business,
more people,
or even more people, exactly. Plus, and good business now. Basically, maybe this will, give us, this will basically select the good business leaders from the bad ones, right? Because those who will just go the way of the automation, they will eventually get commoditized and will be pushed out of the market, or will just stay in some low margin parts of the market. One more thing, the question was about misconceptions and
yeah, that's right.
So when you look at the history of all transformative technologies, specifically in more recent history, let's say 19th century, when we were adopting, the steam engine and electricity later on. When you look into the media at that time, into newspapers, there was no TV and internet, of course. And if you would take an article about steam engine in factories replacing people's jobs, and would just replace the word steam engine with artificial intelligence, you would get essentially the very same article which we are reading today. This is, I think that this is the biggest misconception about not just AI in the job market, but about AI in general. Those guys in Silicon Valley developing all those large foundational, large language, image generating, whatever models, they are partially believing in the fantasy, partially they are pushing forward fantasy that AGI, artificial general intelligence, is behind the corner, everything will change, and we will enter a techno-utopia with the features of communism, basically. So all we need is the universal basic income. That's basically immediately follows after. We will not have anything to do because everything will be done for us. When you, again, look into the past, through all the revolutions, we never lost jobs or, okay, we went through several technological leaps. Where are all those people doing nothing? We all have more work than we can cope with. Unemployment in Czech Republic is like 2%. Worldwide, I believe you will give me better numbers, but it's nothing tragical. It depends on the regions, etc. This new technology will create new jobs. It will provide higher salaries. It will move people who are maybe working in automated, not automated, but basically repetitive jobs into something what they may enjoy more. This is basically the right-wing theory of technological change, and I believe in it.
Josef, keep the microphone, please, because we see that history repeats itself, but you mentioned something really interesting, and that's AGI. What's your prediction about AGI? Because now we talk about year like 2031, something like that. Do you believe that we will see AGI in some functional form in next 5 years, or 10 years, or 50 years?
This is a great question. So AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence, and there have been debates for the last 20, 30, 50 years, essentially since the start of AI or machine learning as a basically science, etc. So the question is what it is, and there are philosophical debates. It's something omnipotent. It's like a god, right? Sometimes when you hear Sam Altman talking on the camera, you will see that he essentially is talking, we are creating a God and we are the good guys, so we will create the good God, basically the New Testament God, not the Old Testament God. That's the hope there, right? But still, it's a for-profit corporation with $80 billion valuation, so I don't buy that. So apart from the philosophical debates, OpenAI in their charter have a definition of AGI because that's their goal. They want to build AGI. What they say is that it's basically a computer system which will be better than most humans in most economically valuable tasks. So this is a definition. Now, it's more concrete than those philosophical, like discussions which often leads to Skynet and Space Odyssey and Asimov, etc. So this is like tangible. Okay, it's about money, it's about economically valuable tasks, it's about automation in the end. It's about bringing value to corporations, whatever, right? Now, but it's still very bold. Better than most humans in most of the economically valuable tasks. I think it's just overstatement. They are just basically, pumping the business value. I don't think that we will reach this in the next 5, 10 years. Because like the diversity of our endeavors, of what we do, how we think, what we are good at, I don't see it like, I think it's just Silicon Valley, basically Kool-Aid we are all sometimes drinking.
Thank you. Jan, back to misconceptions, and maybe I would add some little extra question. Do you think that it's good that we talk about AI like one worldwide entity because, AI is very wide. It's not one thing, but a lot of people imagine AI like one entity that is above everything. So, what's your opinion?
I definitely, if like one entity, I should specifically say, like at this question, that I see AI and these language models functioning differently and with different level of productivity and usage for the society if they work with a system of closed, valuable data, like in healthcare, and there's a lot of potential for growth and progress and improvement of lives, etc. And with the situation where they have to work with like this open data accessible to everyone, where Alžběta Kraus spoke yesterday about that we also need this, that these language models are the AI can learn from or be trained and tested on these large sets of open data, but the usual output of it, as from my subjective point of view, is almost or very often has almost no value. But responding to what my predecessors were speaking about, I think that every technological progress is followed by some disruptions on the labor market, and it's met with some kind of resistance. This is clear. So what we can expect definitely this time, that it will not be about only people who do repetitive jobs, but it is expected that 30% of labor in so-called like white-collar professions would be losing their jobs very soon. So what you can imagine are these like, if you have a legal firm, these young people who go to the archives and study like judicates and precedences and all the materials necessary, this can be replaced quite quickly. Backup offices of certain like bureaucratic departments, bank, financial services, all the work with the data archives, it can be very much improved and people would be losing jobs. But if you look at the US, for instance, I don't know the data in Europe, but I read somewhere that in the US only 1.3% of people working in the banking sector are registered in trade unions. So any resistance would be like almost invisible. And similar, it's over 2% from other similar services. So you will always have some Luddites of current time, but what was closest to it, like was you remember recently there was a strike of scriptwriters in Hollywood. And this was the example that they actually felt threatened by the inputs of artificial intelligence, which would be able to write some versions of scenarios for these like never-ending TV series and etc. etc. So this might be the resistance of our time.
Thank you very much. Let's deep dive into the policies and let's get a little bit political, because we can try to find a solution here in this panel. And my next question is, what economic policies do you think are necessary to address the displacement of jobs due to automation and AI? Or if you can start from the business point of view.
Usually in policies, the governments are looking how to restrict. Me, when I come from the business world, I'm thinking only about growth. Giving more to the citizens, giving more opportunities, giving more to the people. And my belief that government should not restrict. The only thing is to support growth of a country, of a city, of a family, of a child in a school, and of every employee or every person. I think this is possible. We need to be careful from restrictions. I'm not saying that they're not necessary, but to change the mindset from let's look for how we can make growth moving faster, to give more to the people, to be happy people, instead of just restricting it. It's okay to contradict your statements. It's okay to do some restrictions, but not to think with restrictions in your head. How do you create a growth of a country, of a person, of a human, to be more healthy, to be richer, and to be happier? And I think when governments will start to think about not a country as a country, but a person as a person, it will be different. Be afraid of only restrictions. Create opportunities for growth.
Julie?
Yes, coming from the policy side, I will have a slightly conflicting views. But I agree that we have to invest in people. AI will change, as we said, the skills that will be needed in the labor market, and investing in skills policies will be crucial. We said that some of the skills that will be needed are best developed at young age, so initial education is key here. Formal education, the formal education system is also very important because a large part of the AI workforce that develops AI today possesses a university degree, so tertiary education should also not be forgotten. But AI technologies evolve very rapidly, so initial education is not sufficient, and continuous education is very important. So this can take the form of apprenticeships or learning on the job in the firm, but here governments really should put the emphasis on the different types of education and training to develop all the different types of skills that will be needed. Now, I think in addition to skills policies, some regulatory action is also needed to make sure that AI is used in the workplace in a trustworthy way. And I think, and this is something we haven't mentioned until now, but AI and the adoption of AI comes with some concerns, concerns of data privacy for citizens and for workers. And so it is important to make sure that legislation exists to take into account these data privacy concerns. So some laws already exist to tackle these issues, but they have to be reviewed. I'm not saying they have to be changed, but they have to be reviewed in the light of the new developments in AI. We also have a problem with AI and its tendency to increase, to magnify human biases. So in general, algorithms take existing data, and so if there is a bias against some discriminated group in the existing data, this might be magnified by the machine learning algorithm, and so this is another issue that should be tackled by legislation. So skills policy, regulatory action to ensure AI is used in a trustworthy way. Now there are other policies that are more like economic policies that can also be revised. First, tax policies. Many economies subsidize investment in capital and tax labor much more than capital. This might lead in some cases to excessive automation, to excessive use of capital as opposed to use of workers. And this has to be taken into account when thinking about tax policy. A second type of policy that is very important to review is antitrust regulation. So this is competition policy is crucial to ensure that the gains that will be brought about by AI adoption do not only remain within a very small subset of firms, but are shared more broadly with the society. And finally, social dialogue is also very important. So some benefits of using AI, of adopting AI, will remain within firms, but it is important that social dialogue is here to make sure that the benefits and the value added of using AI is shared between shareholders of the company and workers in the company. So a myriad of policies that have to be rethought in the age of AI.
Okay, Josef, Ofer mentioned that he wants to grow. Julie mentioned some of the economic policies and regulation. Do you think that we are able to find some balance between regulation and innovation and find some way how to implement some meaningful policies?
I think that this is, well, this is the only hope we have, I think. We should, right? And when I hear sometimes the argument that there is too much regulation, I don't think that in the world of digital, particularly in the world of AI algorithms, we would be over-regulated. We were under-regulated, and this, what social media did to the society, etc., may be a proof of that. So the problem is not of over-regulating AI at this stage. I think, in my opinion, the most recent AI Act from the EU is quite reasonable and leads exactly to even at least establishing the dialogue, right? Sam Altman said that they may, in his first reaction to the generative AI appendix to the AI Act, which requires them to document what data have been the large language models trained on. So in his first reaction, he said that if this will go through, they will have to pull out of the European market. So obviously there is something going on in there, right? He corrected it later on, probably based on the intervention from Microsoft. I think that the balance we should be looking for here between, you know, leveraging the opportunity, letting the society to adopt the technology for the good while maintaining, you know, certain rules and standards, etc. I think there is one huge fallacy which we are facing, especially in the media and in conferences, etc. Everyone, when we are talking about AI, you all very often hear the word China. Look at China. They don't bother with regulation so much, which is not true. It's a totalitarian system, so actually they do bother with regulation more than we do. But they don't bother with regulations which maintain human dignity and democratic principles, etc., because it's a totality. So, and once we establish this view of competition, who adopts better AI faster, and we compete with a totalitarian system, then we are entering a very dangerous race which can lead to deterioration of our democracy. Dignity of workers, quality of life, quality of human rights, and all that stuff. So I would like to just stress this one thing. And to end my speech here on the positive note, we can look for inspiration in Singapore. I think that 3 months ago or 2 months ago, Singaporean government said that, okay, generative AI wave is here. We will basically subsidize or basically pay to all citizens over 40 years of age or something like that, the reskilling trainings. So they learn prompting, working with generative AI, they learn about AI, so we prepare them for the future. So this is something positive, what shouldn't cost so, you know, too much money and could bring a huge economic potential.
That's right, I've been in Singapore like 1 week ago, so that's definitely true, and Singapore is a great example of how to approach the AI adoption. Jan, if you can add your point of view, some policies that make sense to you?
Yes, definitely. So I mentioned it also on during the breakfast yesterday. Whatever we think about regulation, it is here it will be here at some point. It has always been like this, like with every new technology. Difference between US and Europe is that Europe has a, some would say advantage, some would say US has, some would say advantage, some would say disadvantage for being quite late with regulation. I was quoting this example that railways started to be regulated in the US 66 years after the railway network started to operate. There was no regulation before. Then it was getting a little bit faster. The fastest regulation was with nuclear energy, which came 4 years later after industry emerged. The opposite of the extreme is Europe, which is lacking technological leaders, big technological companies also in AI, but it has already approved regulation. So, but the regulation which is prepared in the US, and it is prepared, I think it will not be that fundamentally different from the one which has been implemented in Europe. The pillar of the regulation, as I understand it, is that reader or consumer of artificial intelligence should always know that he is consuming a content prepared by that it is a content prepared by artificial intelligence or a robot or whatever we call it. So it is one thing. Another thing which we didn't touch at this panel yet, that artificial intelligence is not only software and programming and this and that. It is also hardware. It is a huge industry, which if you look at which companies are having like the fastest market capitalization, are growing like exponentially, like all these like producers of chips and NVIDIA and Taiwanese companies like producing chips. It's just amazing rate, and as our colleague said, like it must be properly regulated also as far as anti-monopoly things are concerned. AI will consume enormous amount of energy. Some people estimate that very soon in the US it would consume 14% of all energy production. So this definitely is waiting for some regulatory attempts by government to control it, because there are some apocalyptic scenario which is speaking about 30% of energy being consumed by AI in developed countries very soon. So this is definitely to be regulated. Plus there are areas, and it was, I suppose, mentioned in the previous panel, which directly touches the politicians who are creating the regulation. So you have all these involvement of AI in campaigns. You have these robotic phone calls which are pretending that a particular politician is calling to you. It has already been applied in the US, and you have artificial feedback from so-called authentic voters reacting to particular regulation, and it's just bombarding your channels of communication which normal people are using. So we shouldn't be surprised that sooner or later or you have this enormous potential for deep fakes, for these videos which would be manipulating politicians, what they do or are not doing on particular videos. So politicians will be certainly very much motivated to somehow regulate the industry, but if they would regulate it in a good or bad manner, we don't know, but this is unavoidable.
Thank you very much. Jan mentioned some of the ethical considerations and maybe approach how to deal with it, like to label AI-generated content and so on. Ofer, do you think, or what ethical considerations should companies keep in mind when implementing AI? Should you just stick with regulation like AI Act, or should companies do one step more to be ethical?
I think that when it comes to regulations inside companies, all the regulations should be around how to help the company grow. And again, not to restrict. When you regulate, it's mainly about data. And I will give an example of this. You can create data with AI. You can create many things with AI. You can instruct robots with AI. But here it comes. If I know how you work and how you think, basically I can automate most of the processes that you do into a robot. It's just a matter of time. Which means that I can take your job if I want to and take it to a robot. But some things cannot be done by robots. So if you mention like going to Singapore, and they're very good at what they do. I know I was a consultant from the Singapore school systems. But one thing they don't know how to do well in Singapore is to hug their children.
That's right.
So there is emotional element that the machine still cannot give. I'm saying still. But the most important part for us to understand, we can copy every human action into a robot, into AI. Every human action can be. The regulation should be about the emotional elements that are a part of the work environment that needs to bring the beauty of humanity towards the work of the shallow work, maybe, or even brilliant work that sometimes AI and robotics can do. Because if we will lose that, we will lose humanity.
Thank you. Julie, what about you and ethical considerations?
So at the OECD, we developed the OECD AI Principles to ensure that AI is developed and implemented in a trustworthy way in a society. So these principles were developed in 2019 and signed by all the OECD member countries and I think 7 extra countries as well. And these principles form the basis of the G20 AI principles. And there are 5 axes, and I think these 5 axes are also very important for companies to keep in mind. The first axis is about the development of AI for inclusive growth and well-being. So AI should be developed and implemented in pursuit of beneficial outcomes for people and for the planet. The second axis is about fairness. So AI should be developed, should respect the rule of the law and existing human norms, including freedom, dignity, autonomy, privacy and data protection, non-discrimination and equality, diversity, fairness, social justice, and internationally recognized labor rights. The third point is about transparency and explainability. So AI actors, AI employers using AI should provide meaningful information to workers so that they are aware when they deal with an AI system and they understand how the output has been created. Fourth, AI system should be robust, safe, and secure. And fifth, AI actors and actors implementing AI should be accountable for the proper functioning of the systems. So these 5 principles can also apply to employers adopting AI, and I think it forms a very strong, sound basis for the implementation of trustworthy AI.
Thank you very much. Josef?
I think that most was said already. The OECD 5 principles or 5 axes are the foundational, and when you look on most of the ethical systems or regulatory systems, they sort of align in all of that. I would just like to add maybe one thing, that when we talk about business, then you have like workers inside, so you are applying AI in the processes. You are automating their environments. Maybe soon we will get some version of augmented reality or something like that, which will be modulated by AI. So basically, you are, changing the way how things work, and you need to maintain their privacy, awareness of being, let's say, influenced by AI, etc. So that's one thing. Keeping basically, if there are any left-wing politicians in the audience, I think that, resurrecting some of the left-wing topics of protecting workers' rights in the age of AI may become relevant again. Then the second is, like, if you have a company which sort of produces some sort of an automated system, let it be software as a service or self-driving car or whatever else, right? You are having your AI, which you are building, training, has an impact on the society. And basically, we have seen in the past that self-regulation in that regard doesn't work too much. I like capitalism, and I understand that the main purpose of capitalism is to innovate and grow. That's good. But that should not be boundaryless, that should not be limitless, because there can be collateral damage or collateral effects, second, third order effects on the society which are not desirable, both for democracy as well as for capitalism, right? So I will throw in the abbreviation which may not be so popular, and I don't like it either, but ESG, basically standards, which for long have been sort of partially just, ethics washing type of exercises for most companies. In the age of HI, actually may provide some good framework for applying good practices and for doing less harm or more good, however you put it.
Jan, do you have anything to add, please?
Well, I don't know. As I said, I am not such an expert in technology itself, but it would be, I am myself wondering, but perhaps it would be better from a position of a moderator, like it's a question because I follow what experts say and they differ on this, like is it possible that at a certain moment very soon we will have artificial intelligence which will be somehow out of our control, and the question is that all the technologies which were mentioned before, the man was like quite simply able to use it according to his decision and for the purposes which were human choice basically. But now there is a chance that sooner or later we will come to a moment where there is a autonomous agent created by us. Some people automatically believe that it will have to have a consciousness, but I don't think it's necessary for an agent to function and to do something evil even without consciousness. But the problem is that the level of control. But there are different thinkers. My favorite, Václav Smil, author of Czech origin, which is a favorite author of Bill Gates, by the way, and one of the most prominent authors of Czech origin, like says like, how come like artificial intelligence could be dangerous? You just like plug it off from electricity and that's it. So, but maybe it will be smart enough to generate electricity when it is out of control. But I am wondering myself into what extent there is a chance it will be out of control. And I would like myself to hear from experts here, like if you can switch it from electricity and that's it, as Václav Smil says.
Okay, thank you. Time is running, and if you are here because of robots, this is the moment. And my next question is, do you believe that robots should have humanoid appearance? Because we want to label AI-generated content. But we are trying to make robots that looks like us. Is it a good idea? Over.
Let me think about it. My mother, she's 94. She makes the best gnocchi in the world for me. My mother will not live for long. I want to have the same gnocchi being created for me. The robot will be able to learn from my mother if we put some sensors on the body, and a robot chef can produce it to me. But can the robot hug me like my mother?
And maybe the most important ingredient in the gnocchi is love of your mother, right?
Yes, and now we can go this way. What if there was a suit, and there is one, by the way, that can learn from you moving your hands, cooking something, has cameras, sensors, everything in there? And what if there are only 50 million mothers and fathers in the world who know how to make their own gnocchi in a different way? And what if those 50 million gnocchis were somewhere on a platform that my robot can go, pay to this mother 1 cent to take the recipe and to create 50 million gnocchis for me based on my test, because every time I will finish eating, the robot will ask me, Offer, did you like it? What is missing in the gnocchi? And I will be able to explain, and I will remember and will create new recipes just for me. Can this happen? I'll tell you something, it's already happening. Follow the news soon, and you will see robots that can cook beautifully based on recipes being taken from. Now, what I want to do is to send my mother that suit, because I love her food, and I want in the future at least the robot to make the food for me to remind me of my mother, so I can look at the pictures. But do I want a robot to hug me like my mother? No, there's only one mother, and the humanoid mother will not be instead of it.
Thank you very much for a great answer. I'm getting hungry, and I also love gnocchi, so you can invite me if you want. Julia, I know that robotics is not your topic, but maybe your personal opinion about humanoid appearance of robots.
So on human appearance, I'm afraid I won't be able to say much. What I can say is that is about collaboration between humans and robots. From what I read in my professional life, it seems to me that collaborative robots are the next big thing, or are even a big thing. This is what is called also cobots. And to facilitate interaction between humans and these cobots, I think we will need well-trained managers. Managers that will know well what the robot can do and what the human can do, what is the comparative advantage of both, in order to be able to allocate tasks in a wise and sound, smart way. It will also need to know how to discriminate between the performance of the robot and the human. If there is a mistake, is it the fault of the robot or is it the fault of the human? Who should be blamed, or who should be rewarded in case of excellent performance? These are questions, I think, that are a bit overlooked understandably by technology developers, but that companies should really keep in mind. A lot of things will have to do with managers and business leaders.
Josef?
So, apart from the ethical questions, like what will it mean for us if we would get, completely believable artificial version of ourselves, like looking at that object essentially and associating it with some human qualities, which is basically what we do when you try to interact with ChatGPT, and it gives you some really good text. You start to have basically a feeling that you are interacting with something intelligent, right? So here we are talking about something even more powerful and potentially more risky, dangerous even. The truth is that in certain environments, let it be like factories, etc., those environments have been optimized largely for people. So sometimes you may need a bipedal, thing with arms doing some manipulation. But I would definitely, so that's understandable. That's probably, you need to have something which can go up the stairs and walk down the stairs. But I would not go the way which some technologists foresee, where in the future artificial nurses will be taking care of our old, lonely mothers in the retirement homes, right, as a solution for, overly aged population. I think that this is like a morally very questionable future, which I would not like to see. And just one, I know we are running out of time, last comment. I don't think that AI will ever get out of control, because those people who control it, it's a very powerful system. It's very demanding, it's very resource sensitive, as you said. Electricity, chips, raw materials, learning, data. It's like, it's a pinnacle of the global capitalism, sort of, right? It would not happen without global economy, without global communication networks, etc. So those who are in power of it will never give up that power. The idea that they will spend $1 billion, $10 billion, $100 billion building an autonomous agent and then like letting it out of the nest and saying, go and do whatever you want in the world, that's like completely naive.
Jan?
Okay, perfect. So I'm glad and I trust you on this. And so for me, it's not that important question. It seems to me a little bit similar, like how people think about extraterrestrials, like if they imagine them like as green little people with heads and sort of human looking or not. So this is similar to me, but when my colleague mentioned managers, perhaps it might be surprising for a lot of people that managers and corporate boards could also be replaced. Certainly, certain parts of it, like all these, like I don't know, compliance officers and HR people and DEI people and all these specialized parts of corporate boards. They might be among the first to disappear, but I might be completely naive.
Thank you very much. Our time is almost up. I must say it's been an awesome conversation. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's give our speakers a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you very much.